Hey everybody, I'm Yvonne with Back to Earth Creations, and in this video I want to show y'all how to make this hybrid design of finger ring. Now I call it a hybrid because it incorporates chainmail and wire wrapping. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to be showing you how to make 3 rings today, but they all start in a similar manner, and I'm using 18 gauge 1/4 inch stainless steel rings, and I'm going to close them. I want to make as solid of a closure as what I can, so you can see here. And then I'm going to open like this, and then I'm going to open our 3rd ring in the same way, and I'm going to hook on that closed ring to that one. And then we're going to close it. Whenever I'm closing, I like to press my pliers towards each other as I wiggle back and forth to make sure that that little gap in the ring is closed. And now, setting these up like a little Venn diagram, I'm going to hook our 3rd ring through the center so that it's hooked through both. And then we're going to close that ring. And then I just drop it on the table. Sometimes it lands correctly, sometimes you'll have to poke it a bit, but you want it to lay like a little rosette. And from here we're going to be using some 26 gauge. You could use 24 or 28 gauge as well. And I'm going to pull off, I never pull off more than an arm span really, unless I'm doing a whole lot of coiling. So this is only like 2 or 3 feet. And I realize that everyone has different arm spans, you know, with some variation. But the reason why I recommend an arm span is if you've ever tried like hand sewing something and you're pulling the needle through and the thread is following it, you don't want it to exceed the reach of your arms, because otherwise you're going to have to, it gets a little cumbersome. So just a side tangent on that. Ooh, and then, so we've got about 2 feet of the 26 gauge, and then I'm going to be using 18 gauge for the core, the band of our ring. And for the most part, I just have my standard flat nose and bent nose pliers for chainmail, some wire snips, round nose, but I do recommend also having some nylon jaw pliers that you can just use to straighten your wire while it's off the spool, because here you can see that bit's been straightened and this bit has not, and the way the light plays off of it really shows how little nuance there is, and like just little imperfections in the straightness of the wire. And so we can just smooth that right out with those nylon jaw pliers, and we'll need about 1 foot of wire to make this ring. Now the first style is this one here, and this one doesn't even need 1 foot of wire. And I only make this design on a custom basis when I know what size the client is going to want, because most of the time I make my rings adjustable, and I'll show you how I do that. So to make this one, we have about 8 inches of wire. We have our ring mandrel, and I'm going to make this one to a size 9, and so I'm just going to curve our 18 gauge wire around, and I've got a little bit of a cross in it, just enough that I can hook over one end of the wire and then hook over, whoop, you want to get both wires through all 3 rings of our Mobius flower, and then let it slide on down, making sure that we're still at the size that we want. And then I'm going to bend each of the wires back in the direction that it came. So the left side wire gets bent off to the left, and the right side wire gets bent off to the right. If you're using a softer metal like copper or aluminum for your Mobius flower, I wouldn't tug as hard, but with the stainless steel, we've got a lot of leeway. We can really get in there and just tug the heck out of it and get a nice, secure, solid bend. And that's how it's looking from this side. I still want the Mobius flower sitting flush to the ring mandrel. And now from here, I'm going to just bend around and come through. And I'm going to grab with my pliers and just tug. And it doesn't have to be perfect just yet. I just want to get this sized around. And I like doing my wraps both on the same side of the Mobius flower. So you can see here the ring band. This will make more sense after I get this crossed through. So just pulling on through. And you can see, whoop, well, I threw it a little. I caught it though. It got a little distorted. That's okay. We're just going to put this back on our ring mandrel and tighten it on down, and that's going to help to tighten up those wraps that we had done. But you can see here the wires traveling through. If the bottom is towards me and the top is away from me, they both travel around towards the top, like building those wraps that way. I do hope that that makes sense, and hopefully the video, what you're seeing, will fill in any of the gaps left by my verbal explanation. So we're going to tug on both of those nice and tight. Remove the ring mandrel again. And from here, I'm just going to snip. Not quite down far enough to where the wire would be poking our skin as we wear it. But I just want it kind of up to the meridian? What does that word come to mind? To like the middle point. And then I'm going to come in with my bent nose pliers and just give it a little squishy smush. And coming around there, smush. There we go. And you'll want to check and make sure that there's no little pokey bits. And it just fits right like that. Now this is a very dainty ring, but I personally love a narrow ring band, and I love how just sleek and simple this design is. So that's one version of this ring. You could also, gosh, you could use like a half round, a 16 gauge half round. That would be really cool. Like there's so many different variations that you can add to this, y'all. Using a square wire would be really neat. And so we'll set that one off to the side. Now back to this style where we incorporate a bead. And then I'll be showing you how to resize this as well. And so today I'm using some 4mm beads that I bought almost 20 years ago. These are genuine Baltic amber, and they are just gorgeous. And I'm going to thread our 26 gauge wire onto here. And I want to get our bead into the middle, because we're going to be doing a little bit of coiling to try to make this nice and steampunky. And so I'm going to thread out about this far. There's my bead in the middle, and then I've given myself 2 or 3 inches, and I'm going to coil 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then I'm going to squish that with my thumbnails. You could use your pliers as well, just depending. And then I'm going to move this down to the center of our core wire. And I don't want the bead butted up completely like that. I want it kind of out just a smidge. That way whenever I bring this over, I want the entrance and the exit of the wire into my bead to be kind of uniform. Where the wire's coming in, I want a few millimeters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Coils, and then some mush. And so depending on what wire gauge you're using, you may need to do more or less coils, but I want to get our wire to where whenever we put our Mobius flower over our bead, the wire is in line with the edges of the Mobius flower. So if you use a larger ring size to accommodate a larger bead, then you might do more coils. So from the back side, that is how it's looking. And from here, I want to come through on this side, thump, just sewing through all 3 rings of the Mobius flower. And it's just lifted it right off, but I do want to come in from below so that it's hooked around on the same side. And really, this is not a huge deal. You can do it however you want, but I like to make it as tidy as I can. So then we're wrapping around the back side of our wire, our core wire, and threading up and through, whoop, on the other side. So hopefully this will make sense. As we pull this tight, you'll be able to see how that's wrapped around. So the wire started here. Perhaps we can zoom in and use a T-pin. The wire started here, wrapped around and through, and then came across the back and came up through here and then around. So now we're ready to pick right back up where we left off with going with some coils. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I'm just going to leave that right there like that. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. So we're coming around now. And our wire's coming up on this side, like that. So I'm going to come down and through on that side of our bead, and just pulling nice and snug. And then from here, we can actually try to nestle that wire in to our other coils if we want. That's not super important, but it's a fun little, I think I consider it a personal challenge to try to be just as tidy as I can. And now we've come across, I'm threading back up through those 3 rings of the Mobius flower. And then I like to use my thumbnail as a slide for the wire to just slide right down and then nestle in where I'm hoping it will go. And then this comes around there to the top, like that. And we will do 5 coils here as well. So there's 1, 2, I'm going to zoom back out so that you can see we've got a lot of wire here on the end. So to navigate around that, I'm just 4 and 5. Hopefully getting to see that happen is helpful to you. And then I'm just going to scooch this so that it's a little bit more like perfectly centered. And so that's how we make that component. And I feel like there are infinite ways that we can incorporate this bad boy right here into like a Mobius, like bangle bracelet. Like if we had a little Mobius flower around each of these beads or something, like we could incorporate this onto the bail of a pendant. Like if you can kind of imagine with me, like that's cool. That's cool stuff, y'all. Like I'm excited. So we could snip off the wires here and proceed to get this style of ring that's kind of nice and sleek, or we could continue with just coiling all the way down. And I think this gives such a nice, like, kind of steampunky vibe to the piece, just adding intricacy. And also in our booth or on our website, depending on, I'm a workaholic, y'all. Please don't ever feel like pressure to sell your jewelry, but I'm an artist who's been, I don't know if I'm an artist who's been lucky enough to make it into a business, or a business person who's lucky enough to get to make art. But either way, that's just where my headspace comes from. But I don't want anybody to feel any sort of pressure that they have to be selling their work, because it's not fun for everyone. I get that. I'm going to do a little bend right here just so that we can kind of crank this around coiling gizmo style. But whenever I'm selling either in my booth or on my website, I like to have multiple price points for our jewelry. Like usually a low price point, a median price point, and then a high price point. And so for this would be our lower price point ring. I would probably sell that for about $5 or so, just depending on, you know, like you could make this out of sterling and sell it for like way more. This one here, I would probably sell for I don't know. It would be our medium price. I always chronically undersell our work, you guys. And that's usually my husband's the one who takes care of our pricing. And that has kept us in business over the years. But I have this intrinsic sense of, oh, well, I made it. Therefore, it can't be that hard to do. So there's not a whole lot of value to it. And apparently that's not a good mindset. And I'm working on it. But by having a low, medium, and high price point, it gives our customers options. And it helps me to feel a whole lot more confident in what we're selling too, because if everything that I have is like mega cheap, then I feel like I can't sneak in like a super expensive piece. Whereas if we have a broad price point, I don't want people to come into my booth and be like, I'd love to shop from you, but everything's like, expensive. So by having that varied price point, it makes me confident. It gives our customers options. And by taking one design and making different levels of intricacy, helps me to fill those niches within my own business. I hope that made any sense whatsoever. And so I'm just going to continue coiling this around. But yeah, sometimes it'll be like $5, $10, and $15, or like a $10, $20, and $30. Like I'll just try to, price them relative to each other. But pricing our work is so tricky. Typically, I'll go through, and if it costs me, just making up numbers here, if it costs me $5 in materials, then I will not sell that piece for less than $15. And that's kind of how because some pieces I'll get done quick, and some pieces I get distracted by a squirrel and lollygag a little bit. But that's my base formula. We get a lot of questions about that, and that's if I have no other ideas about how to price my work, that's how I do it. And so just doing a little bit of primping to get all the wires lined up. That's how that's looking with the coiling. So now we're going to take our ring mandrel, and I'm going to line this up. And I like to make my rings in like the size 13 or 14 range. And we're just going to bring this around town. Now we could add more coiling. We could have used more wire to get it to be like coiled all the way around. But coil or no coil, this is how we finish it off. And I just have that wire tucked behind, very similar to our simple wire wrap ring design that I enjoy so much. And you could do just one wrap like this, or you could do multiple, which I think beefs it up kind of nice. I'm going to do multiple on this one. Oh, I think that makes it look so cool, almost like an eye. Okay. So we're going to remove our ring mandrel, and I'm going to come in here and I'm going to add a little bit of a bend. I'm bracing quite firmly with my thumb. I'm just going to sew that through right there and bend it around. And then I'm going to do that same thing on the other side. And you can do a little bit of a training bend if you want, and that can be helpful whenever you're pulling the wire through to get all of that pressure to just focus in that bend. So there are those. And now we could do a second coil or a second wraparound and just snip it. Or I'm going to go ahead and do a second wraparound anyways, just because I like it to be nice and secure. We could snip it and squish it, or we could do a cute little spiral. I think I'm going to demonstrate both. And so if I were to do a little spiral, I'm going to just go like, boop, right there. And I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to grip the wire as close to the tip of the wire and as close to the tip of my pliers as I can. And we're just going to spiral that in like this. And you could have it be a larger spiral as well. But if you don't want a spiral there, we can just snip it. And I like to do it right at the center line between these two wires of the ring band. I highly recommend these flush cutters. They're electrical flush cutters, so they were only like $6. And you see how easy they're cutting through this 18 gauge copper wire. Now, if I'm cutting like memory wire or something harder, I'll use these memory wire cutters, but you can see these do not have the precision tips that these ones do. But all the tools and materials that I'm using here will be linked down in the video description to help you all get shopping if you're looking for it's the tools that I recommend, that if I could go back in time and recommend them to my earlier self, that's the whole point of that. And so I'm just going to squish this with my bent nose pliers until there's no little pokey bit. I want to be, whenever I'm wearing a ring, I want to be able to run my fingers through my hair and not have anything get snagged. And that's a challenge. So here we have that. And so, and you can see this is quite big on me now, and it's like, oh, but it's so cute though. Oh, I love that ring. So if I'm selling this and somebody who, let's say, is a size 7 wants to wear it, the way that I would size this down is I'm going to do our little split in the wire here, and I'm going to come in on this side as close up to the split as I can. I'm supporting from the center here, and I'm bending bonk, out that way like that. And then I'm going to grab this side, bracing with my finger on the ring band, and I'm bonk, turning the other way. I'm going to go just a little harder. And then we're going to do that same thing on the other side. I'm just getting that split enough that I can get my pliers up in there and then holding it. And it's all kinds of jank right now, but that's okay. We're going to slide it onto our ring mandrel, and we're going to do some squishy smush and get that. So yeah, if we wanted to bring this down to a size 7, now that we have those splits in the wire, we can just turnkey. And I understand that this is not everybody's style, but this is just one of many ways that we could pull this off, you guys. Like, if there's a crafter, there's a way. You could use some half-round wire to secure right here if you would want. Oh, so it's size 7, that's a little small on me. There we go. But that just looks so neat, doesn't it? And it's a great way for inexpensive jewelry to be able to resize it and make it adjustable. And I love it because you can also squeeze in on those sides a little bit, and you won't have to worry about your ring shifting off to the side. It'll stay nice and centered. And so I just love it. Oh, I don't know if it looks ancient or futuristic. And then from here, if you decide you want it larger, it is very easy to just set on your ring mandrel and then slide down to, let's say, a size 10. And there we go. That is how to make this style of ring. And y'all, if you coil it quite a bit and get the coils to go all the way around, then whenever you get up to this part, it can like flop, and you can do like little coily. I still didn't quite have enough, but you can see how right here. So you can really beef this up and make it look just super neat. Hey y'all, thanks so much for hanging out with me during this video. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas for future tutorials, please leave them down below and I'll do my best to get back to you. Sign up for our free newsletter and find tie-dyes, handmade jewelry, cool cabochons, fused glass, all sorts of different stuff at backtoearthcreations.com. You can also find a full calendar of our events for whenever we're vending in person, whenever we are having new tutorials, live streams, and shop updates, whenever we are having our camp along in the woods, and all sorts of different stuff. So if you're curious about any of that, sign up for our free newsletter. And then also, if you enjoy our free tutorials and would like to support the creation of more of them beyond just watching and enjoying yourself and liking and subscribing and all of that good stuff, please consider joining our Happy Crafter Club. It starts at like $1.99, I think. It's on YouTube, Patreon, and our website. Whichever one you sign up for has its own unique benefits. So you can there's more information about that down below if you're interested, but if not, then please just continue to watch our videos and enjoy yourself and keep on keeping it crafty. So I will see y'all next time, and until then, you guys, happy crafting. Mwah. Bye.